I'm going to discover more books that I missed by watching other videos and looking at so yes, thank you. Who is trying to escape the pain of the recent murder of her best friend. Oh, no, that's a lie. And two women are alone at the offices of fashion conglomerate Claudine de Marchand. I love me some boarding school vibes. I love... Hi everybody, it's Audrey and welcome back to Chapter and Converse. Today we're going to talk about a whole bunch of books coming out in February that I am so jazzed about. And there's a bit of a list. It is of course not all inclusive, and 1000%, just like last month, as the month goes on, I'm going to watch other people's videos and I'm going to see stuff on Bookstagram and I'm going to realize all the things I missed. But this is where we're going to start for a bunch of books that I'm excited about. So this is definitely going to be a mix of some auto-buy authors for me, some new to me authors, some debut books, some books I've got some curiosity about, some repeat offenders, like a whole bunch going on here. And can we all talk about how amazing January was? Like, I can't even begin to keep up with all the great books that came out in January. And I feel like this entire year is just snowballing into like great, amazing books. I'm not even kidding. I just saw snow drop outside my window as I said that. That was weird, but here we go. It's weird here. So let's just jump into the books that are coming out in February. First up, February 1st. So first up is a book that I've talked about on here a bunch of times because I was so lucky to get the NetGalley arc of it. And it's Finley Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead by El Casamano, which is the second book in the Finley Donovan series. So I have already pre-ordered my personalized autographed copy of this from Murder by the Book, because you guys know I love Murder by the Book and I'm happy to support them. And I am so excited about this book. Finley was one of my favorite books of last year. This one absolutely held up in the series. And Finley Donovan is a mystery with some dark humor. It definitely, I will say the same things over and over again and I'm sorry, but it's definitely like Dead to Me on Netflix with Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini. And it's about this woman named Finley who is a struggling writer. She has just gotten divorced from her husband. She has two young children. She is having a hard time paying her bills, keeping it together. And she is in a Panera with her agent talking about the plot of her next book. And she is a mystery thriller writer. I don't know if I mentioned that. And somebody overhears their conversation and mistakes Finley for a hit woman and winds up offering Finley a lot of money to murder their husband. And it becomes a little bit of hijinks. It becomes a little bit of Finley trying to decide, like, I could really use that money, but can I really be a hit woman in real life? And I talked about this too. I definitely feel like it's a little bit of like if Lucy and Ethel got involved in like a murder mystery. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the characters in this. I like the writing. It's good, quick, sharp writing. They're really great characters. There's some levity to this. There's some real relatability to it. And book number 2 in the series just continues with these great characters. We meet more of them. It basically picks up right where book number 1 ends. So this is a case of there is a resolution to book number 1, but it also leaves you with like a little something of a door open. So it's great to be able to dive into what's happening next. So I am very excited for this one, and I'm very excited that I'm gonna have my own hardcover copy to add to my shelf in no time. Next up is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson, and I got this through Book of the Month last month. It was part of their January box and it was an early release from them. And this is a family story with a bit of mystery to it. So in present day California, we have a woman named Eleanor Bennett, and she has just passed away and left behind a puzzling inheritance for her two children, Byron and Benny. And Byron and Benny have not been getting along. They're not close with each other, but their mother's death obviously brings them together by force, so to speak. And their mother leaves a very strange, puzzling inheritance for them. It's a traditional Caribbean black cake made from a family recipe with a long history and a voice recording. So Eleanor shares a message with them, and it's about a tumultuous story about a headstrong young swimmer who escapes her island home under suspicion of murder. The heartbreaking tale Eleanor unfolds, the secrets she still holds back, and the mystery of a long-lost child challenge everything the siblings thought they knew about their lineage and themselves. So this book is, you know, can they figure out Eleanor's true history? Can they figure out the mystery of it all? And it says, will their mother's revelations bring them back together or leave them feeling more lost than ever? So this is a debut book, and I'm really interested in this. And I love me a mystery. You guys know I love mysteries in the past and the present. I'm guessing there's maybe some dual timelines in this. I haven't started No, that's a lie. I have started some of these books, but I see that we get multiple POVs in this. We seem to get a lot of POVs in this, and I'm really intrigued. Again, I love me a debut book, and I'm excited to see what this one's all about. Next up, I also have an ARC of, and this is These Deadly Games by Diana Urban. So she wrote All Your Twisted Secrets, which I read, I want to say that came out in 2020, and I read that. And this is a YA thriller. They're not related, it's not a series at all, but that was her other book that I read. And this one says you have 24 hours to win or lose your life. So All Your Twisted Secrets was a locked room mystery, and it had people sort of like in a sort of and then there were none kind of a way. People were lured to a location under false pretenses and then need to find their way out alive. So I feel like this is also going to be sort of a similar-ish kind of tension. It's got a game to it like the first book had. And this one says, we all wonder what we'd do in a murder mystery, like I Know What You Did Last Summer. I love me some Lois Duncan. She was one of my favorite authors when I was a teenager. And it says, what if someone was picking off your friends one by one and going to the police wasn't an option? Would you panic and run? Or would you have the smarts to solve the mystery? But what if it was much worse and the killer made you do the killing? Or else they'd murder the person who mattered to you the most? Would you be able to choose? Gosh, this sounds really dark for a YA book. So it says it's this exact scenario that Crystal Donovan finds herself in when she gets a message on a mysterious app with a picture of her little sister gagged and bound. Yikes. She agrees to play the kidnapper's sick game. At first they make her complete bizarre tasks. Steal a test and stuff it in a locker, bake brownies, make a prank call. But then the games get deadly. This is like way darker than I realized it was going to be. So I enjoyed All Your Twisted Secrets. I have a feeling I'm going to enjoy this. I was just talking about how I didn't connect with a YA book I read recently, but this definitely sounds like it's targeted towards me. So it has some Agatha Christie vibes to it, and again, some Lois Duncan vibes, which I love. So yeah, very exciting. So here you go. Next up is The New Girl by Jessie Q. Sutanto, and this is another YA mystery. This one is boarding school vibes, which is one of my favorite tropes, and this one takes place at Draycott Academy. So we follow our main character, Leah, and she is on a full scholarship ride to the prestigious Draycott Academy, and she's determined to make it work, even though she has never felt more out of place. So she's our fish out of water. And it says, on her first day there, she witnesses a girl being forcefully carried away by campus security, and her new schoolmates and teachers seem totally unfazed. Apparently this is like completely normal there, but Leah is like, this is not normal in the slightest. So as she uncovers the secrets of Draycott, complete with a corrupt teacher, a golden boy who isn't what he seems, and a blackmailer determined to get her thrown out, she's not sure if she can trust anyone, especially when the threats against her take a deadly turn. So boarding school vibes, yes please, thank you very much. It says for fans of Karen M. McManus and Gretchen McNeil, twisty, thriller, social commentary, page turning, and I'm really interested. So I'd actually heard about this book, but Jessie also wrote Dial A for Aunties, which has a sequel coming out this year, which is an adult thriller, and I heard about New Girl, but I thought New Girl was coming out later in the year, so this is one of those cases where I am so glad that I was wrong about it, and I'm definitely like interested in this one too. So anything at a boarding school, I'm giving it a go, 1000%, and it just sounds great. The next book is Other People's Clothes by Kala Henkel. And the little blurb about this from the New York Times says, 2 American expats obsessed with the Amanda Knox trial find themselves at the nexus of murder and celebrity in glittering late-aughts Berlin. So I was like, okay, yes please, one more time. You know I love me some true crime, and I definitely went down the Amanda Knox rabbit hole. So in this one we have Zoe and Hallie. And Zoe's best friend has recently been murdered, so she's trying to escape the pain of that and is studying abroad in Berlin. And then she meets fellow exchange student Hallie, who idolizes Warhol and Britney Spears and wants nothing more than to be an art star. So Hallie and Zoe wind up moving into a sublet of the home of a well-known thriller writer named Beatrice Bex, and they soon spend their nights twisting through Berlin's club scene and their days hungover. But they are convinced that Beatrice intends to use their lives as inspiration for her next book. So it says, Hallie vows to craft main character-worthy personas. So they start hosting this decadent weekly nightclub in the apartment, gaining a whole bunch of notoriety. Everyone's like clamoring for an invitation to Beatrice's. And it says, as the year unravels and the events spiral out of control, they begin to wonder whose story they are living and how it will end. So this one also has a quote from Megan Abbott on it, and it says it's like the dangerous intensity of female friendships, which I feel like is Megan Abbott's sweet spot. You guys know I love Dare Me. And it just sounds really, really interesting. So it just says it's an unforgettable window into millennial life, the lengths people will go to eradicate emotional pain. I love that Amanda Knox wink that it all has going on to it. So this one sounds really interesting. I have not yet heard anyone else talking about this, but I also feel like I perhaps am not watching the right people who are talking about it, but that quote from the New York Times completely gripped me. So totally interested in, again, if it has Megan Abbott vibes and those dark, twisted female friendships. Dark, twisted friendships, period. I'm super interested in. Dark, twisted female friendships, absolutely. Get my antenna up. So again, antenna is up on this book. Here are the books coming out on February 8th. So the next book is The Night She Went Missing by Kristen Bird. And I actually also pre-ordered this from Murder by the Book. So normally I would not necessarily do a pre-order on a debut author that I don't know anything about. But at the same time, this book was 1000% on my radar. Super curious about it. It has boarding school vibes. I was already shopping at Murder by the Book, and Kristen Bird is doing an autograph copy that's going out. So I figured, let's support a debut author, let's support a bookstore that I love, and we're taking a leap of faith on this one. So this one takes place down in Texas, and this one says, it's a domestic suspense about loyalty and deceit in a tight-knit community where parents are known to behave badly and people are not always who they appear to be. So even though we have a prep school setting, this is an adult novel, and this one really focuses on the parents of the kids at the school. So Emily is a senior, she's popular but bookish, and she goes missing after a night out with her friends. She was last seen leaving a party with Alex, a football player with a dubious reputation, but nobody is talking. So this one says, now 3 mothers, Catherine, Leslie, and Morgan, friends turned frenemies, have their lives turned upside down as they are forced to look at their own children and each other's for answers to questions they don't want to ask. Each mother is sure she knows who is responsible, but they all have their own secrets to keep and reputations to protect. So it's lies, it's obviously protecting your family. There's definitely some dark twistedness to this. There's the mystery of what happened to Emily that night, who's responsible for it, and it just sounds very interesting to me. I love the idea of the mothers being at the crosshairs, and I know I have another book, and I'm embarrassed that I can't remember what it is, that has a similar vibe to it, where there's something going on with the children, and it has the mothers sort of knocking heads and having to confront what's going on within their own families. But again, this really just sort of popped on my radar. I was hearing such great things about it. And J.T. Ellison had said it's perfect for fans of Big Little Lies who thrive on stories of deceit in the suburban world. I love rich people behaving badly. I love suburban drama, and I love me a prep school vibe. So again, Emily is a senior at the school. Her grandmother is in charge of the school, so we have some family intertwined in it. So I love the setting of it, and then I think we're gonna get some great secrets and lies going on in this one. Very excited. Books coming out on February 15th. Next up is The Cage by Bonnie Kistler, and this one definitely has Megan Golden escape room vibes to me. So this one is about 2 colleagues who work at this international fashion conglomerate, and it is a cold and misty Sunday night, and they are both alone in the office. So one is the company's human resource director, impeccably dressed and perfectly coiffed. She sits at her desk and stares somberly out the window. Down the hall, her colleague, one of the company's lawyers, is buried under a pile of paperwork, frantically rushing to finish. Leaving at the same time, the 2 women, each preoccupied by her own thoughts, enter the elevator that will take them from the 30th floor to the lobby. But when they arrive at the lobby, one of the women is dead. Was it murder or was it suicide? So it says, incredibly original novel that turns the office thriller on its head. Propulsive narrative drive of the firm with a psychological complexity of the silent patient. And I'm super curious. I am totally intrigued by this one. I feel like it's like a riddle. Like 2 women get in the elevator on the 30th floor. It opens in the lobby. One of them is dead. What happened? It's like the man was afraid to go home because the man with the mask was there. I love the riddle of this. I'm super curious about this book. It just, like I said, it sounds very much in feeling to The Escape Room by Megan Golden, which was a beautifully dark and messed up book about Wall Street. And I loved it so much. So I'm totally intrigued. My eyes are peeled wide for this one. And finally, books coming out on February 22nd, which, can we all just take a minute and appreciate, like, how cool is it that your book is coming out 2/22/22? I feel like there's some sort of like universe magic happening with that. The next up is one of my most anticipated books, which I have also pre-ordered, and this is Lucy Foley's The Paris Apartment. So you guys know I loved The Hunting Party so much. Definitely one of my most favorite books. And then I very much enjoyed The Guest List, although I just felt like The Hunting Party was more dark and more messed up, and I loved it. But I'm really excited for this book. So I get the sense that this is going to follow sort of a similar, I don't know if it's going to have a similar vibe to it or just a similar setup to it, but this takes place in a Paris apartment. I have heard this likened to, if you are fans of Only Murders in the Building, you will like this, and I loved Only Murders in the Building on Hulu with Martin Short and Steve Martin and Selena Gomez. It's amazing. If you haven't watched it, what are you doing? Go watch it. But this one is about a girl named Jess, and it says she needs a fresh start. She's broke and alone, just left her job under less than ideal circumstances. So she has asked her half-brother Ben if she can come crash with him at his place in Paris, because, hello, Paris is always a good idea and everything's gonna be better in Paris. And when she gets there, she finds a really nice apartment that she can't believe Ben could ever afford, so she already has some questions, but also Ben's not there, so she doesn't know where her half-brother is. So it says the longer Ben stays missing, the more Jess starts to dig into her brother's situation and the more questions she has. So we have an eclectic group of neighbors, and it says the socialite, the nice guy, the alcoholic, the girl on the verge, and the concierge. Everyone's a neighbor, everyone's a suspect, and everyone has something they're not telling. So there's a little bit of Lock Every Door, Riley Sager vibes to me, and I definitely feel like it's going to have a similar structure to her other books, which I have a little bit of a conflicted feeling about, to be perfectly honest. I think part of why I struggled, I shouldn't say struggled, The Hunting Party was a 5 for me, and I think it would have been a 5 whether I read it first or second, because I just loved it. I read The Guest List almost immediately afterwards, and it had that same structure of, you know, we know something on page 1 that happens, and then we go back in time, and then we see the multiple points of view. So I almost hope she switches it up a little bit here and doesn't follow that formula, but we'll see what happens. But either way, I really enjoy her writing. I do love that she goes there with her character. She doesn't hold back on things. And I am super optimistic that this will have some darkness to it. And again, it's probably going to be a long time before I can go back to Paris. So I'm happy to vicariously be in Paris through this book and through Lucy Foley. The next book sounds super creepy, and it's called Beneath the Stairs by Jennifer Fawcett. So the little blurb on this one was like, for fans of Jennifer McMahon and Simone St. James. And I was like, okay, I'm totally down for this one. Atmospheric, spine tingly, it's a debut. I am wholly hooked already. And then I started to read what it was all about, and I was like, yep, I'm totally in. So this is a woman returning to her hometown, reluctant return home, after her childhood friend attempts suicide at a local haunted house, the same place where a traumatic incident shattered their lives 20 years ago. Already, I'm like, past and present, reluctant return home, secrets in the past, secrets in the present, and atmospheric vibes and all the things. Completely, totally down for it. And it's a small town, of course. It's got to be a small, sleepy town. So there is the creepy haunted house called Octagon House, hidden deep in the woods. Of course it is. So it says, even fewer are brave enough to trespass. A man had killed his wife and 2 young daughters there, a shocking, gruesome crime that the sleepy upstate New York town tried to bury. One summer night, an emboldened 14-year-old Claire and her best friend Abby ventured into Octagon House. Claire came out, but a piece of Abby never did. So now Abby is in a coma. It's 20 years later. And it says, with little to lose and still grieving after a personal tragedy, Claire returns to her roots to uncover the darkness responsible for Abby's accident. So eerie page turner, trauma that follows us from childhood to adulthood, returning to the beginning to reach the end. I love that line. I'm so excited about this one. And I don't even want to wait until spooky season to read it. It just sounds really, really good and super creepy. And there's a quote on the front from Sarah Langan, who I also love, who wrote Good Neighbors. Love. The next up is The Verifiers by Jane Peake, and this is amateur detective, which I love. It's also a debut novel, and it says it follows Claudia as she verifies people's online lives and lies for a dating detective agency in New York City until a client with an unusual request goes missing. So this description says it's part literary mystery, part family story. And we have a woman named Claudia, and it says that she's used to disregarding her family's model minority expectations. She has no interest in finding either a conventional career or a nice Chinese boy. She's also used to keeping secrets from them, such as that she prefers girls, and she's just been stealth recruited by Veracity, a referrals-only online dating agency. A lifelong mystery reader who wrote her senior thesis on Jane Austen, Claudia believes she's landed her ideal job. But when a client vanishes, Claudia breaks protocol to investigate. And you know that she uncovers a whole mess of stuff, personal and corporate deceit. So it says it's a story that examines how technology shapes our choices and the nature of romantic love in the digital age. So again, this one sounds really interesting to me. I love me an amateur sleuth, and I think it's gonna be fun. This next book is just a quick shout out because it is the third in a series, and even though I have the first two in a series, I haven't read them yet. So this is The Harbor by Katrine Engberg. So this is police detective. I honestly don't want to read too much about it because I don't know if it's going to spoil anything from the first books, but The Tenant is the first book in the series, The Butterfly House is the second in a series, and this one is about a missing child, it says, and the web of lies that have threatened his life and may prevent him from being found. So it's an ongoing detective series. I have heard very wonderful things about it. I have heard Butterfly House is better than The Tenant. I take that all with a grain of salt. I do intend to start reading this series this year. That was in my series I want to begin in 2022 video that I did. So if anyone is already into the series or curious about it, just heads up, book number 3 is coming out. Next up is Fake by Erica Katz. So she wrote The Boys Club, which I haven't read yet, but it's up there, it'll happen. And this one is the high-stakes world of art forgery that moves across the globe, from the trendy art galleries of Manhattan's Chelsea neighborhood to the high-flying international art fairs of Hong Kong. So it says, can you spot the difference? Emma Kahn is a fake. So she's a forger and an artist who specializes in 19th century paintings. But she's not a criminal. Her copies are commissioned by museums and ultra-wealthy collectors to protect their investments. So she has mastered all the brushstrokes of all the classics, and it says sometimes it's a painful reminder of the artistic dreams she once chased for herself when she was younger and before her family and her world fell apart. So of course Emma winds up getting an offer she cannot refuse from an art collector, and it says, but every invitation incurs an obligation, and Emma isn't prepared for what's to come. So she's pulled into this completely fabulous world of glitz and glamour. And it says, but will the past collide with the present, making her wonder how much of her carefully curated life is just as fake as her forgeries. So I'm really intrigued with this one, and I have heard great things about her as a writer, and shame on me for buying her book and not having read her book yet. So I'm definitely low-key curious about this one. It gives me a little bit of like Thomas Crown kind of a vibe to it, and I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye out on this one. So there's my first pass of what is coming out in February that I already have my eye on. Like I said, there will be more to come as the month goes on, I am sure. And I'm going to try and do weekly updates of books that are coming out. And then I will keep you guys posted, obviously, as I receive the books that I pre-ordered and as I read them and my thoughts on them. So let me know what you guys are excited about this month. Are there books that you were super jazzed about I haven't talked about? Have you had a chance to read any books yet that are coming out in February? Let me know what you have your eye on and we can talk about it. And thank you, of course, you guys, for spending time today here with me. I do really appreciate it so very much. And I will see you guys really soon in another video. Thanks, everybody.